All right, let's just jump right in. We are living through, literally one of the biggest shakeups in how we work in 100 years. The whole idea of a traditional 9 to 5 job, it's being completely rewritten right in front of us, replaced by this new world of apps, algorithms, and, our home offices. This whole shift promises this amazing freedom, but it also forces us to ask some really big questions about what we actually value more, that flexibility or that security. And just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, it is staggering. Get this, by 2025, it's estimated that a massive 40% of the entire global workforce will be part of the gig economy. This is not just a little side hustle anymore. It's becoming totally central to how our economy actually functions, affecting everything from the car you call in the morning to how huge companies staff their most important projects. And this really brings us to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? The real push and pull of this whole new world of work. On one side, you've got this incredible promise of freedom, be your own boss, set your own schedule, work from a beach if you want to. But on the other side, there's a much tougher reality for a lot of people. The constant grind, the unstable income, and just a total lack of a traditional safety net. It's the ultimate trade-off, and it's one that literally millions of people are trying to figure out every single day. So that leads to the big question, right? What is the actual cost of all this amazing flexibility? When we get rid of those old school employment structures, what are we really leaving behind? Yeah, this quote pretty much nails it. That freedom, that flexibility, it often means giving up the protections that, honestly, we've kind of taken for granted for decades. We're talking about basic things like minimum wage, overtime pay, having access to healthcare and a retirement plan, or even just being able to take a paid sick day. For so many people, being an independent worker really just means you are completely on your own if things go south. And this is what takes us straight to the legal battlefield where this is all being fought out. You see, how we legally define a worker, are they an employee or are they an independent contractor? That isn't just boring legal jargon. No way. It is a multi-billion-dollar question with huge, profound consequences for our whole society. So in the US, the Department of Labor uses something called the economic reality test to try and figure this out. The core idea is actually pretty simple, but it's really powerful. Basically, it says it doesn't matter what your contract says you are. What matters is the reality of your situation. Are you truly out there running your own business, or are you actually dependent on one company for your livelihood? And to figure that out, regulators look at these 6 key things. But it's not really a checklist, it's more like a balancing act. They ask questions like, do you, the worker, have a real chance to make a profit or take a loss based on your own smarts and hard work? Did you invest in your own tools, or does the company give you everything? And maybe the biggest one of all, how much control does the company have over how you actually do your job? No single factor decides it, but when you put them all together, they paint a really clear picture of who's actually calling the shots. And let me tell you, the stakes for getting this wrong are incredibly high. For individual workers, yeah, it can mean being denied things like minimum wage, but it goes way beyond that. It affects the entire economy. When some companies misclassify their workers, it gives them an unfair edge over businesses that are actually playing by the rules. And that can end up driving down wages and standards for absolutely everyone. Okay, now let's zoom out for a second. Because this is not just a problem in the United States, not at all. All around the globe, countries are wrestling with this exact same question, and they are coming up with this really fascinating and sometimes completely contradictory patchwork of rules. Just look at how different the approaches are. In California, they have a really strict ABC test that pretty much assumes you're an employee from the get-go. The EU says a platform is probably an employer if it just meets 2 out of 5 criteria. The UK went and invented this whole middle category called a worker. And in a place like India, many gig workers exist completely outside that traditional system. So what's the big takeaway here? Everybody is struggling with the same problem, but absolutely no one agrees on the one right answer. All right, let's shift gears a little. Because beyond the gig economy, the pandemic kicked another huge trend into overdrive: remote and hybrid work. And this opens up a whole new can of worms, really, moving beyond all the legal definitions and into the real, human, day-to-day experience of what it's like to work now. So why did remote work become so popular so fast? Well, a big reason is pretty simple. For a lot of people, they just feel like they get more done. A pretty big chunk of workers say they are genuinely more productive at home. And it makes sense, right? You cut out the commute, you get rid of all the office distractions, and suddenly you can actually focus in a way you never could before. But there's always a trade-off. On the flip side of all that productivity, there's a real social cost. A pretty striking number. 42% of remote workers say they feel less connected to their colleagues. You know, those random water cooler chats, the quick brainstorms in the hallway, that simple feeling of being part of a team. You just can't schedule those moments over a video call. And that loss of connection is a huge challenge. And this is where it gets even more complicated. When you look at who is choosing to work from home, the data shows that underrepresented groups are opting for remote and hybrid work way more often than their white colleagues. And that very preference for flexibility could, kind of paradoxically, create a whole new kind of inequality. And that inequality, it actually has a name. It's called proximity bias. It's a really simple, often unconscious bias. We just tend to favor the people we physically see every day. It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. And the risk is that the people who are in the office get the better projects, they get noticed more, and they get promoted faster. In fact, a study from before the pandemic found that remote workers had 50% lower promotion rates. 50%, even when their performance was exactly the same as their peers in the office. So, after all that, where do we stand? Well, the truth is, we're in the messy, confusing, uncertain middle of this whole story. This next chapter of work isn't some fixed destination we're all heading towards. It's more like a massive, global experiment that we are all a part of, right now. And the final outcome is truly anyone's guess. Which brings us right back to that fundamental question from the beginning. As we build this future, we have to decide what we care about most. Is it total flexibility and personal freedom? Or is it about shared security and making sure things are fair for everyone? The answer to that question is going to define the world of work for generations to come, and it's a trade-off that all of us are making, every single day, whether we realize it or not.